Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Green and I'm going to walk you through my lesson plan. So in this lesson, students are to investigate the essential question, is technology helpful or harmful in our lives? Students will read and annotate provided articles, watch video clips, and analyze research using resources provided to them. In analyzing these resources, students will collect evidence and create an argumentative CER or claim, evidence, and reasoning paragraph. So the CER paragraph is a precursor to when we're going to write our argumentative essay later on. Students will then engage in a Socratic seminar where they will discuss the essential question with their peers, during which they will reference textual evidence that they find in analyzing the resources. To show mastery, students will create a digital infographic and present the infographic to their peers. Exemplary infographics will be printed and displayed in the school's media center. In creating infographics, students will show mastery and understanding of the following concepts: writing a claim, finding evidence, and reasoning, along with proficiency in using Canva by creating visually appealing interactive infographic that includes pictures, headings, and subheadings, captions, and sidebars, which are skills that they learned in a previous quarter. Infographics will be posted to a collaborative Padlet where students will comment on their peers' infographics. Okay, so the main essential question that I'm focusing on is technology helpful or harmful in our lives? Some of the other questions that I want students to consider throughout is: how do we determine if a source is trustworthy? What evidence best supports our argument about technology's role in our lives? And how does discussing with others shape our thinking? So I'm hoping that students have some background knowledge already in some of the technology that we're going to discuss, but I found so far that my students are generally interested in learning more about technology, especially because the technology that we're going to talk about has to do with microchips and biometrics, which is interesting to them, and it's something that they've not really learned about specifically before. Okay, so I'm going to have several formative and summative assessments. So my formative assessments are going to be the articles annotated using a program called Canva. There's also going to be a credibility checklist, which is completed on paper. They're going to complete the Socratic seminar prep sheet on paper. And then my summative assessments include the CER paragraph, and I included a rubric here, along with the Socratic seminar participation, and then finally an infographic, and then they will also earn points for interacting with their peers and commenting on their infographics as well. So I wanted to show you some of the article resources that I'm going to show the students. So these are going to be the different articles that they'll read throughout this unit. So we've got biometrics are not better. We have a biometric body bridge text, and that's not progress. All three of these texts come from our textbook, along with two outside articles, the Tech to Recycle Clothes and the impact of technology on our lives. I'm going to be using three digital tools. I'm going to be using Canva to make the interactive infographics. I'm going to be using Cami to annotate articles, and then finally Padlet when we do the collaborative sharing and commenting portion of this lesson. Before I go on and talk about the rest of my lesson, I wanted to show you these different resources and how they work. So first we have Canva. I feel like a lot of people are already very familiar with Canva. What I like the most about Canva is that it provides you with a ton of templates, and I can easily search exactly the template that I want, and it gives me thousands. So what I would typically do is I would pick a very simple one, and I would almost create my own template that the kids can download and then plug in their information. Okay, if it were an advanced course in the past, I have given them the option to pick their own template, but I hesitate to do that because some kids can get really stuck on the choosing the template portion of the activity, which of course is the least important part. Part of this activity is that when they choose their template and customize it, they're going to create headings, subheadings, and the whole point is that the infographic is interactive. So they're going to be inserting links and creating buttons for their classmates to explore their resources. really love Canva for this. My students love Canva. I've done this in the past. I've made some last year, and they're easy to print, so it would be great for display in the media center after the students create them. All right, the next one, and I had never used this resource before this, but it is a really, really cool resource. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's either Kami or Cami or I don't know. But it's an online annotation tool. And I was a little bit hesitant about using that because this is the Kami tool that I really, really ended up liking. It is an online annotation tool, and I was a little bit hesitant to use this because I personally I'm a very tactile learner, so I like to highlight and print things out and write on my paper, but I found this resource was really intuitive. So the way that you can begin is you can either create a blank page or you can upload your own pages. Um, it also gives you featured templates that are really useful as well. So let's say I wanted to upload from my articles. So I'm on my Google Drive and I just select the article that I want and it uploads very seamlessly. Okay, the application lets you highlight, lets you select specific things that you want to highlight. It lets you undo. It lets you add a text box and make it colorful. So I really like this tool. I think that my kids would really like it as well. You can also download and export your annotations. So if I did have more tactile learners, I could also download my own annotations that they could use as reference, but then I could also have my students send me their annotations. So that's part of what my lesson is going to be, where the students annotate on this program and then they send me their annotated papers and I go over them. And finally, we have Padlet, which I feel like a lot of us are very familiar with already. I really like Padlet because it is fully customizable. Let me show you one of my older ones. So in this case, I gave the students a choice. I gave them essential questions and I explained what they were to do, and then I gave them examples. So that would be the process of how I would introduce Padlet to my students, as I would give them examples, I would model what I'm asking them to do, and then I would let them do it. So part of the assignment is when they're finished with their infographic, they post the link to their infographic here on Padlet, and then they go and they look at their peers' infographics, and then they leave comments. Okay, the comments can be glows or grows, things that they liked about their peers' work, things that they thought they could improve on, as well as any questions that they still had for their peers. Okay, moving on to why I decided to use that technology. I specifically decided to use those three resources just because that they support student learning in many different ways. So using Cami to annotate articles allows students to share their annotations with me and with their peers for easy collaboration and assessment. It was also chosen to fulfill the ISTE standard 4.2 in that I will be learning how to use Cami with my students. I especially don't know everything about it, and one thing that I like to do is whenever I have an opportunity to tell my students that I don't know everything, I love to do that, to show them that I make mistakes, but I'm also willing to learn. There are also collaboration opportunities with all of these resources. Students will collaborate using Padlet. Students can also collaborate when using Cami. And I just made a note that before this lesson, I had not used that resource, so I'll be learning this tool along with my students. However, in order to complete this lesson, students should, or it would be ideal if students had experience already using Canva and posting to Padlet or something Padlet adjacent. So I'm hoping that students will come with some prior knowledge or experience of opinion writing, and by the time they get to 6th grade, they should have some experience with that. They will also need an understanding of credible versus non-credible sources, but I did add a mini lesson into this entire lesson just in case. And then finally, students would need experience using Canva. So to identify students' readiness, they will answer a warm-up question and discuss using the Padlet. So this is before we do anything. So the very first thing that I ask students is to list 2 ways technology can help you and 2 ways that technology might hurt you. And this is very open-ended, so students can say things like, oh, well, social media or the phone, kids are addicted to their phones. And most kids will focus on social media and cell phone use. Some difficulties that I anticipate is that my students might come into this lesson with an emotional bias toward technology. They've learned so far in school that phones are bad. We're not allowed to have phones in school, so a lot of students are quick to defend the use of cell phones. So that is something that I'm going to have to make sure that they, don't harp on too much, is their emotional bias. Students may also have difficulty determining the credibility of a source, but this is just due to lack of experience. And again, I will have the mini lesson so that they can practice determining the credibility of a source. When we have the Socratic seminar, students may have trouble overusing personal anecdotes about technology versus referencing the articles. And again, that would be the difference between referencing an article about biotechnology versus discussing their general feelings about social media.